I know it's probably peculiar to eulogize someone you've never even met, someone whom you're only aware of through their body of work and how they present themselves to the public. And I've only done that a few times at great length. Certainly whenever I'm on the podcast with the guys and we talk about people who have passed away, we dedicate, a certain amount of time to that tangent. But only every once in a while here have I kind of been able to reflect and really delve into my emotional responses to when really talented, creative people pass away who played a big influence, not just with regards to my own creative output, but with regards to my life viewpoint in general. Most recently, and by recently, like a few years ago, being able to just talk with Max on the chat cave about the passing of Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, our Batman, and how his body of work on that show and in other projects really left a long-lasting positive impression with us that we can look back at the animated series as full-grown adults, but still find so much merit and meaning in that show that we first discovered when we were kids. That's the power and the effect of mainly his performance in that show. And then you can take it in another direction with other artists. Robin Williams, so diverse in terms of performances, but also just seemed like a very genuine human being. Christopher Reeve. And now on the side of just filmmaking, style, and storytelling, but also how powerful those stories can be if presented in different lights. David Lynch. When I first knew about David Lynch, I very much was approaching it with a very blinders-on kind of viewpoint of what constitutes good cinematic storytelling, because I was a dumbass teenager who thought anything trying to be artsy-fartsy had no actual substantial narrative merit to it, and that things like Twin Peaks or Eraserhead or anything like that it's like, what is the point of these products, of these films? I was just in that mentality of, clear-cut, streamlined narrative supersedes theme, supersedes style, supersedes, mise-en-scène, and all the things that are intertwined with filmmaking. And as you grow up, and as your palette for movies and shows and all that media expands beyond just what you hyperfixate on at a certain age in your life, when you actually open yourself up to new cinematic experiences and appreciating art in new terms beyond just the technical, just the outright laid out step-by-step structures, then that's where you can really flourish in terms of expanding your knowledge. And I greatly owe a lot to David Lynch for helping to expand my knowledge and to drop any sort of guard around being held back in what I should enjoy in movies. He went for broke. He would unapologetically be himself in his directing, in his writing, in his acting. Gordon Cole, one of the all-time greats. And as I got older, I found myself just being drawn more and more to stuff that I wouldn't even give the time of day, or I thought was kind of silly back in the day. And don't get me wrong, there's stuff in Twin Peaks that's silly. And I still kind of ribbit or poke loving fun or do an impression every once in a while of a character from Twin Peaks or something like that. There's still stuff to kind of have fun with, to really look beyond that, I guess the memeability of certain characters and scenes, and to actually see what the mechanics are underneath the style, to actually see like, okay, the style is actually reinforcing or bringing out some very serious topics. It's actually addressing themes of abuse and trauma and broken people. How do broken people carry on? Of duplicity. Oh my God, duplicity galore. Of othering, of feminism, and societal discourse, societal decay. It's all there in so much of his work, in all of his work. But he never felt the need to bang you over the head with it. And I have a feeling that gets lost in the translation for people sometimes, is people will watch something like Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway or Inland Empire and not be able to make heads or tails out of it necessarily on the first go around, but then also say like, well, there's nothing worth going on for a second go around or a third go around with this movie. No, there's a lot. I can understand if it's not going to be to everyone's tastes or anyone's particular sensibilities, that sometimes maybe we do just want to have that experience straight out there with the film, get the gist of it, and get out. But I could never do that with any of his products, with any of his narratives. I kept coming back again and again, whether it was the more abstract, the more kind of bigger concept or just out there concepts such as an Inland Empire, whether it is a mixture of some different pastiches in noir, in serious drama, in horror with Twin Peaks, the show, the revival, Fire Walk with Me, whatever, what have you. Or if it was a more straightforward, more linear kind of narrative like The Elephant Man. I talked about The Elephant Man on here a couple years back, and how revisiting it with some new perspectives and some new clarities, not just with regards to the way the world is and how the world kind of sets itself up to plant unfair advantages on other people, but also after some self-searching and some self-reflection on who I am and what my truth is, and how very much so there are times I absolutely feel othered. And it didn't just become about like, oh, that's phenomenal makeup John Hurt's wearing that Lynch was able to come up with, but to kind of say like, wow, Hurt and Lynch were really on to something very tenable and something very compassionate with this movie. Even if it isn't the most, say, accurate depiction of Merrick's story. I'll post a link, I guess, up here for that video essay if you're interested. But yeah, my attitude towards David Lynch's work absolutely did a 180 as I grew up, which, you know, is probably par for the course for a lot of people who were first introduced to David Lynch at a younger age. You kind of have that feeling of, I really don't get what this is. But then as time goes on, and if you have the patience and the fortitude to come back to the material, you can start to say like, oh, okay. I'm really kind of at a loss for words. Like, this isn't a really structured video log. I just heard about the passing in the group chat about like an hour ago. So he was a phenomenal writer and knew how to really craft a story through filmmaking, and for the most part seems really knew how to collaborate with other like-minded creatives. And along with regular condolences that we would want to give out to friends and family. I hope they're doing well. I mean, he hadn't been in good health for a while. He, came out publicly about his emphysema from, years of smoking, and that he was going to stay homebound probably due to threats of contracting COVID, but he never planned to retire, was going to keep on working. And even during like the rough times of the pandemic, he was there keeping on working with his daily check-ins with us and the weather forecast and everything like that on his channel. But condolences obviously for friends and family, and for those who would regularly collaborate with him to create something special. Kyle MacLachlan, Laura Dern, Isabella Rossellini. Man, there's so much good work that he put out there into the world. Not just in filmmaking, in music, in painting. And that I would hate to think that someone who only knew him by name association or by like that guy who did Twin Peaks, that they immediately close themselves off to exploring his work simply because they kind of feel like it would be too weird. No, let in a little bit of the weird, so to speak, and it'll start to make sense. Because there is heart and there's humanity in all of his work. He just, I guess, never really felt the need to have to display it out there full front and tell you, like, this is the humanity. This is about the heart of the human condition. This is about the trauma this character endures. He'd rather just show it to you. He'd rather show it to you and maybe just have an abstract sequence represent it in his own artistic way. He profoundly changed what I want to do whenever I created a film or whenever I put together a video project. To not just have something straightforward, A point to B point to conclusion in the narrative, to not just have rote, straightforward, narratives, to actually challenge myself to do things stylistically different in terms of time, in terms of shots, in terms of meta narrative, to not be afraid of, addressing the viewer while still holding some cards close to the vest, if that makes any sense. I thought I was going to cry a lot more talking about him this way. But all I can think of now is how much I just want to revisit his work. Even all the ones that didn't really hit. Like, say what you will about it. His adaptation of Dune has merits to it. In terms of the visuals. In terms of some of the casting choices. The music. Is it the film he's the most proud of? No, not by a long shot. But it's worth revisiting, goddammit. And I might just do that for the next, week or so, is just revisit all the stuff I have of his. Don't worry, I've got my own projects that I'm going to work on this weekend and get out there, because I think that would be more of a testament to his body of work too, is to say, never stop creating, as it were. Go create stuff. So that's what I intend to do, but man, yeah. Well, thank you, David, for the quirky yet wonderful characters, for the dark yet rewarding travels, for allowing us into your little sphere of storytelling. Hope the diner has cherry pie for you.